17th season of Bass Talk Live with your hosts, Mark Jeffries and Matt Pingrack. BTL is brought to you by Lawrence, Bass Cat Boats, APCO, Ducket Fishing, Strike King Lures, Sunline, Big Bite Baits, Spro, Exo Lures, Yamagatsu, The Bass Tank, and Denali Rods. PTL coming at you. Good Wednesday, everybody. Welcome once again to another edition of BTL, Bass Talk Live, where Matt and I are going to talk bass fishing and anything else that we want to talk about. Yes, it is Classic Week, and today it's the Classic Odds Show. I think it's the 16th year, 15th year, something like that I've been doing this. And Matt, as I mentioned earlier this week, probably the toughest group and conditions and lake and historical data that I've dug into to come up with the odds this year.
Yeah, you got 4 sheets, and I will tell you, folks, I'm very impressed. Jeffries has like 3 lines of notes on literally every single angler.
Yeah.
Their last finishes, why they're low, why they're high. You said the key word for the show was what? Trends. Very, very important. So we're going to get into that. And look, folks, I'm going to say it right off the bat. This is for entertainment purposes only. That's the only reason that we do this. If anybody out there is putting money down based upon these odds, good for you. But I do it. We do it just for entertaining the fans of this show. And I have fun doing it. I probably spent about 10 hours this year total on doing research and really establishing the line. Now, before I jump into it, and we're going to jump right into it here very, very quickly, I need everybody to understand what these odds mean. Right? These are not the odds that are set that this angler is going to win. These, if there was a line in Vegas at a sports book, this would be what the line is set at for each angler, where the sports book is looking for a little action. Hence, that's why the odds are set a certain way to where it could initiate action from the fans. Like, oh, well, no, he's not an 8-1 guy. Well, let's see. If I put $100 down, I win, 700 and something, because you got to take the vig out of there that the sports book gets. But that is the way that these odds are set. It's not the percentage or odds of the guy winning. It's to develop a line and action. If there was an actual sports bet, sports book, whatever you want to call it, that took action on the Bassmaster Classic. That's how I set it up. Do you think somewhere in a dark recess of a dimly lit room,
no,
someone is taking black market bets on the Bassmaster Classic?
No.
You don't think that that's happening?
No, don't think it is. Really don't.
High
not
stakes.
Even overseas.
There's not someone in the Ukraine sitting in like a fortified concrete box
no,
taking offshore bets on John Cox winning the Classic.
Probably not. I mean, who knows? Anything is possible these days, but highly unlikely in my opinion. Now, I mentioned yesterday an email that I received from a fan, Matt in Alabama. As far as this ever becoming a reality, yeah, I know they got the Fox Sports Bet in certain states. You answer the 6 multiple choice questions. You pick this, you pick that. You get put into a group. But it's not really sports betting action as many people that do engage in the sports betting for other sports. It's just not the same thing, but I get what they're trying to do. They're dipping their toes in the pool. But in this email, it says, on the show, and this is Matt, Not that Matt, but Matt in Alabama. On the show, you continue to bring up betting on bass fishing. I like the concept and the extra attention that betting would bring to the sport. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. Isn't that the whole reason why sports, like team with sports books, and isn't it like some of the colleges, some of the like the Pac-12 and stuff, aren't they even like investigating, or not investigating, but looking into teaming up with sports betting because of the revenue that it would bring the league?
Yeah.
Because how does that work? So like, how does the league get revenue from it? So like, okay, the NFL, the NFL
marketing agreement is what it is.
So there's like a marketing agreement between DraftKings and the NFL.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not getting a percentage of every single wager. I mean, I guess it could be structured like that.
Okay, so that was my question.
It's probably a fee.
So like, if hypothetically the Bassmaster Elite Series was like, hey, we're going to be a legitimate betting sport, they would team up with the sports book that was representing it, and then they would get a percentage of that.
Yeah.
And then as a result, you could see a trickle down effect to where if they got $10 million hypothetically, then the anglers end up getting more money out of that because that's the whole theory behind why it's valuable for a league to have legalized betting on that league, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could
happen.
That's a pretty general, but that's kind of the reason why it's important to investigate.
Yes.
Potential revenue.
Yes. All right. Now, continuing with the email. It says, for betting to be a successful and long-term part of the sport, what rule changes would need to be made to the sport of bass fishing? See, that's where I got into some of the things. I called it insider trading, insider angling. You do run into some potential hurdles from a rules aspect. And it said, what independent third party would validate that there is no cover-up by the league or the angler in some of this information? Once again, you open up a can of worms when you start taking wagers on whatever you're involved with. And then in a way, I'm asking, would the extra attention truly benefit the sport at the current level, or would the leagues need to make major overhauls to the rules of the game as we know it?
Explain that a little bit more as far as how about insider...
What, the insider trading thing?
Yeah, and how that is different in fishing than it is in football.
You know, you might have you could have the same situation. I'm not exactly sure what the protocol is for professional athletes as far as telling people information that the general public may not be aware of.
Because you've got 100 guys that talk to a bunch of people, and you might have a guy that you're going to put money on, but he says, I'm not on him, and you're the only person that knew that?
Yeah.
That would be insider trading.
It would be. You could flip it and go the other way too. Is you know, and I'm sure some of these situations take place right now, just like insider trading does in the betting world. I mean, insider trading happens every single day.
So it'd be like so-and-so knows this quarterback has a strained shoulder. The trainer has an assistant that's in there that knows he's not going to be able to throw deep balls. He tells his uncle who's betting, and then boom, he's going to put money on the under or not put money on that team because he knows that something that's not public that's kept in the locker room gets out.
Yeah. So
wow. Okay.
Could happen.
That's a dark world.
Very, very dark. Right, so once again, folks, entertainment purposes only. That's what we do here with the Classic Odds. All right. Another email I want to mention real quick, and then we'll get into the Classic Odds. This came from a fan by the name of Mike. And the subject line says, insight into professional bass sponsorship and contracts. We got into that a little bit. Mark, watch the show all the time. I have a really good friend that's one of the biggest PGA Tour player management reps in the business. His company tried to get into professional angler representation in the 90s. I think you would have a great insight on the business side of professional anglers. Let me know. We will try and get a contact into him and get him on the show. I want to get that guy on the show. All right? Because think about what took place in the 90s. Can you reflect back to the 90s? What happened in the 90s? What was the big major deal that happened toward the end of the 90s? We talk about it on the show.
Towards the end of the 90s?
Yeah.
In this betting world?
No, in the professional bass fishing world. Did you not listen to what I just said? What does this guy do?
He's an agent and does contract rep
for PGA. And in the 90s, he tried to get in the professional fishing world. Well, what took place in the 90s from a sponsorship standpoint?
ESPN?
That was groundbreaking. Aaron Martins was involved with it.
Oh, Crown Royal.
Crown Royal. So
that was a stretch to know that one off the top of my head.
No, because it really and truly is one of the first non-endemics to really have a visible stamp in what was taking place in the bass fishing world. What are you doing?
I'm looking at the 50 most powerful sports agents today. They all look the same.
They read the same book, I guess.
So he's like the Drew Rosenhaus of the PGA Tour.
That could be. I don't know. So I don't even know what
Scott
the dude's name is. Boros.
I've heard of those two.
Yeah. They make a lot of money, man. How much do you think a caddy makes?
I kind of know this. It kind of depends on how the player does.
Well, obviously, they get a percentage. What do you think the percentage is?
I don't. It's not very much, but I know that
it's a lot.
But it used to be like horrible. Like they've really gone up as far as.
Did you know a PGA Tour player, if he misses an event due to COVID, he still gets $100,000? Did you know
that?
Who
does?
The PGA player.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. If they, in somehow, some way, that's what the PGA decided. If they miss an event due to COVID, they still get $100,000. All right. Now you had the situation that took place with what's his name, John
Rahm.
John Rahm missed the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Caddies get 10% of whatever the earnings is.
So if he got $100,000 for missing it,
no, if he got $1 million,
he gets $100,000.
He gets $100,000. So there's a lot of pressure on Mr. Rahm to go ahead and give that $100,000 to his caddy. That's the discussion that's taking place right now in the golf world. Caddies, $100,000, man. You win, $5 million during a season. That's $500,000 to carry the bag around.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure. Do all those caddies probably have to sign non-disclosures too?
To do what?
Well, that they don't go out and talk about their player afterwards. Because haven't you seen a lot like?
Why would you?
Well, you've seen in the past, like Tiger Woods' ex-caddies and stuff like that have come out and done interviews and written books and stuff.
Yeah, and then what ends up happening?
They don't caddy?
They get fired. Or they leave. They go caddy for somebody else. You remember that idea and concept that I came up with years ago?
Yes, the official fishing caddy.
I still think that is a good idea, but a bad financial idea because they wouldn't be able to pay those guys anything at all. Hardly.
Yeah, if I had had a caddy this year, legitimately.
Beanie weenies, baby.
Based on all my tournaments, so I've cashed a $200 check this year. So what, that's $20?
$2.
20.
Oh, 10%. Yeah, you're right.
So my caddy would have pitched.
You could have got a few tolls on the highway, man.
For $20.
All right, the last thing, and then we'll get into the odds. Did you see what the guy that won the All-American was doing? What his pattern was? I have to bring this up.
Browsed it, but refresh my memory.
Brant Grimm.
Refresh my memory. Oh, was it Carolina rig?
One was a crankbait. What was the other one?
Was it a Carolina rig?
It was a Carolina
rig.
I
saw it, yeah. Yep.
It's coming back, baby.
100%. And I don't want to spoil it, but we do have roughly 25 to 30 prop bets at the end of the show because I know a lot of people like the prop bets. There may or may not be a Carolina rig prop bet somewhere in that list.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you like being a caddy in golf? You think that'd be a cool job?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of work and a lot of stress. I mean, you hear about those guys, walking out the greens and knowing the yardages and things like that. And you have to read your player and you're a part psychologist. I've listened to a lot of interviews with caddies and players talking about caddies, and they play an integral role.
Yeah.
I was listening to a deal on the Golf Channel about when John Daly won on Crooked Stick in 91, right? And he was like the 9th alternate, and he got in, and he didn't have a caddy, and he didn't get there till Wednesday night, and the tournament started Thursday morning, and I think it was either Faldo or Price's caddy that he got, and had never caddied with him before, and he goes up to the first tee and he said, like, after 2 holes, the caddy was like, okay, whatever I think you need to hit, he goes, I'm just going to add 2 clubs. But he talked about, because he had never seen the course, and John talked about how he worked with this caddy through the course, and how the caddy had to learn to work with John Daly, you know, because he had everything lined up for a completely different guy for the tournament. And John had never seen the course. But it was just cool, the dynamic that they had. So they'd get on the tee box every time, and John would be like, all right, what's this? And he's like, that direction as hard as you can.
I would like doing that, man.
You
I
need
really
to listen
would.
to that interview. It's a really cool interview.
I need to. That sounds really, really good. All right. You know what? We're going to pay some bills, take a break, come back, and we will jump. Do we need to start at the bottom and work our way up?
That's up to you, man. These are your odds. You've done it a number of different ways, but we got 4 pages, and I think you start with 50 to 1.
All right.
That's the lowest odds you got.
Yeah, which is the lowest ever.
Yeah, usually it's like 850 to 1.
Looking for some action.
You got like
on that
angry wives and girlfriends calling. What do you mean he's 850 to 1?
All right, we're going to take a break, come back, and get into the 2021 Bassmaster Classic odds right here on BTL. Everybody stay tuned. We'll be right back.
The ultimate fishing system starts with Lowrance HDS Live. The best fish finding tools, from chirp sonar and fish reveal to active imaging and new active target live sonar, and complete touchscreen control from your trolling motor to your big motor. For a limited time, building the ultimate fishing system will be easier on your wallet. Upgrade to HDS Live with a Ghost trolling motor, active target sonar, or live site sonar, and save up to $800.
Basscat's legendary 20-foot platform has been paired with angler-approved accessories for 2021. Puma FTD features the proven hull used by many of the top names in bass fishing today, backed by a transferable lifetime warranty. The Puma FTD boasts a full team deck concept which enhances efficiency for you and your tournament partners. Turnkey tournament-winning performance. The Puma FTD SP from Basscat.
Let's face it, fishing electronics are no longer an afterthought. They've become a necessity. And at the Bass Tank, our experts match you with the right electronics, provide professional installation, and educate you to help maximize your catching results while providing support along the way. Because let's be honest, it's about catching, not just fishing. And when you're ready for better results, join the Bass Tank team. Visit us today on Facebook or go to thebasstank.com.
You've been waiting all week for this, and Sunline wants to make sure you're ready for it with bulk spools of all your favorite fishing lines.
That's so fun.
Bulk up with Sunline.
Utilizing my experience, utilizing my time on the water, evolving as an angler, and that evolution should never stop. You have to do it every day. From when you wake up in the morning, you got to be thinking about changing, continually changing every minute, every cast. That's really the premise of fishing the moment.
Hey everyone, Brandon Pollinick here. People always be asking me what I got tied on. And I'm like, X-Zone Lures. And they're like, Brandon, why you got X-Zone Lures tied on? And I'm like, let me show you why.
The bite.
Get out of there. Get out of there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's freaking big. Get in here. Oh, God. Giant. Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh.
I think you get the point.
All right, we are back on a Wednesday. It is the 2021 Bassmaster Classic Odds Show, and we are ready to to get it started. And Matt mentioned it. This is the first year that I have not had a triple-digit underdog.
Well, you've done it differently each year. I feel like your system has become streamlined and more realistic. Obviously, it's to generate discussion and interest, but I think there's maybe one or two guys that I think are a little low or a little high, but other than that, I think you have a reason for everything.
All right, here we go. We're going to kick it off. 50-1, that is the highest odds that I have this year, unlike previous years where I've had 100-1, 200-1. I think one year I even had a 500-1.
But were those odds to win it those years?
No.
Those were still betting odds?
Yeah, it's like bet $10, win $5,000.
Okay.
So, anyway. So this year, 50-1, that is going to be Blake Sylvester from Louisiana. His open average. Now, he has fished some opens. I think he was a nation qualifier. Is that right, Matt? You would know.
I'll go with that. Let's go with that.
Okay. But in the events that he is fished in from an open standpoint, which has been 6, his average finish has been just a little bit over 84th in the opens for 6 events. So the key word, once again, this year, folks, is trends. That is not a very good trend. He's never fished a Bassmaster Classic before, so he is at 50-1. All right, next up, 30-1. That would be Jordan Wiggins from Alabama, brother of Jesse Wiggins, correct?
I believe so.
No classics. He's got 4 top 15s in the opens, but once again, the experience at this level, someone... And Matt, you also can make the argument that, hey, man, he knows people. He definitely has been around it a lot, but never been on the big stage as big as the Bassmaster Classic. So I've got him at 30-1. By the way, Blake Sylvester and Jordan Wiggins have 0 Bassmaster earnings. Nothing. Okay?
Dude, who doesn't? Jordan Wiggins does.
I'm sorry. 32 grand. 32 grand.
He's caught him. I think he's low. I think he is one of the dark horses for this, just strictly on the fact that the guy is a fish catcher. Don't know much about him.
So you would put some action on
I would at 30-1.
Yeah.
I'd throw $20 on Jordan Wiggins without hesitation.
All right. Next up,
he's actually on my fantasy team.
Oh, okay. We will see then. At 20-1, Tommy Williams from Kentucky, 0 Bassmaster Classics, but he did win on a very tough Lake Louisville in the Open.
That's like winning the Classic. That's even tougher. He's won the toughest event.
Yeah, so I have him at 20-1. Next up, 20-1, Trevor Mckinney. He finished 142nd at the James River. All right. But he does have a 22nd, a 28th, and a 36th in some of the other opens that he's fished. Mm-hmm. I just think, once again, big stage. His career earnings right now with Bass, 10 grand, 20-1. I think that's a good long shot that if you want to do it.
I mean, we had him on. Remember how he was a cool, calm customer.
He was. But the lack of experience in his last tournament, like I mentioned, he finished 142nd at the James River. Next up, Ed
Lockard?
Yes.
The Count?
From Virginia. Hey, the dude's got $230,000 in earnings. No classics. His first BAS event, though, was 1993 on Bugs Island, and he finished 191st. So he's come a long way and been in this game a long time. But once again, no Bassmaster Classic experience. He finished 89th this past season at Lake Fork. He did finish 6th in 2020, but that event took place in November. And then he finished 42nd at Lake Fork in May of 2019. That's probably the most comparable when you compare.
Did that 1993 Bugs Island event knock him down a couple points?
Well, no, I just thought, man, this dude, and the reason that I put that fact in there, he's been doing it a long time.
Yes, he has.
Yeah. So 20-1 for Ed.
I got a bone to pick with the next one.
All right, the next one, Chris Jones. Now, he's at 18-1. This is an action play. That is why the odds are at 18-1.
It would get me.
Because Chris Jones is one of those underdogs that I think really has a legitimate shot at winning this thing. He's got $128,000 in earnings. He's fished in the Bassmaster Classic before. He has one previous appearance. He finished 39th at Guntersville back in 2014. But he had a really bad performance at Pickwick. He finished 177th.
I don't care. This is one of the anglers that I believe you cannot do your odds until, or you know how odds change based on things.
Yeah.
The more the conditions get, the way the conditions are getting on Ray Roberts, I think that's Chris Jones jumps up more and more in the odds.
You know, I would agree with
a month ago, I would put him at
18-1.
18-1.
Yeah.
Now, I think you have to put him at 8 to 10-1. That's like I said, that's an action play right there.
That is an action play.
Because he's won 2 opens. He knows how to do it. It's fitting his style the way he's doing it. Like I said yesterday, I don't think Chris Jones has a decision to make in this tournament. I think he's got 4 rods.
Now, in what Jeff Reynolds said yesterday, he said it's going to take a balance. You're going to have to catch him out. You're going to have to catch him shallow, a combination of both. I am a firm believer in what Jeff said. I really don't believe that you're going to be able to win it shallow all 3 days and fish shallow. Nothing but shallow and key on shallow. Could be wrong, but based upon how that lake sets up, I think you're going to have to do it both ways. Once again, if you're not aware, the lake has been up. I think it's currently right at 3 foot, 3.5 foot up. It's been up for a while. They've had a ton of rain, but the water temp's creeping up toward 80 degrees. And when that happens, the outbite really, really, really gets going. In fact, Jeff Reynolds said, what was it? 90%, 80% chance that it was going to be won using a Carolina rig?
If it was normal. He said he gave it a 60% chance now.
Okay.
That the winner, most of his fish, half of his fish will be on a Carolina.
So if you were wanting to bet on a long shot, 18-1, Chris Jones would get, I believe, a ton of action on that. All right, next up, 16-1, Frank the Tank. Yes, he's from Texas. He has over $300,000 in earnings. This year he finished 74th at Lake Fork. Back in 2020, he finished 39th. And then in 2019, which occurred during the month of May, he finished 53rd at Lake Fork. He's been in one classic. He finished 26th at Knoxville in 2019. He did win on Guntersville, all right, but this year at Guntersville, he finished 94th. The trend is not good. No HFA on this one. That's why I have him at 16-1. Next up, Pat Schlapper, 16-1. This year he finished 67th at Lake Fork. His best finish this year was 22nd at the Sabine River. He does have 4 top 40s, but he has 0 classic experience. That's why I have him at 16-1.
He's good.
All right, next up, still at 16-1. This is another sleeper because a lot of people outside of the West Coast may not be familiar with Justin Kerr. Hopefully you are. I put him at 16-1 to get a little action. He did finish 59th at the Pickwick Open this year. Way back in 2014, he finished 32nd at Lake Amistad. This is his very first classic, and this guy's been in the game a long time. His first tournament that he fished on the bass side was back in 2003.
Yeah, he's been around.
All right, and he finished 18th. If you're looking for somebody that does it all, and he does, all right, every aspect of the game, that's another play right there at 16-1. All right, I mentioned, not by name, but discussed this gentleman on the last show. I have him at 15-1. I'm talking about Keith Carson. When you look at trends, yes, he's never been in a Bassmaster Classic before, but over on the NPFL side, he finished 13th at Eufaula. He won at the event that took place in Texarkana. And then this past week, he finished 3rd at the Harris Chain. He also won at Lay Lake in the Open. And he fished his first Open, surprisingly, back in 2006. Yeah, he's from Florida, But once again, I think that this guy has been so dedicated to this game and the trend, because that's really all I have to go on right now. The trend, hey, this guy has been at the top of the leaderboard just about everything he's done. I'm looking for some action right there at 15-1. But look for Keith Carson potentially to be fishing on the final day. All right, next up, 14-1. We got, let's see here.
Brad Watley.
Brad Watley. He does have $217,000 in earnings. Did not have a good performance at Lake Fork this year. Finished 68th. But in November of 2020, he did finish 5th at Lake Fork. But the comparable event back in May of 2019, he finished 66th. He has been to one classic, finished 45th back in Knoxville. His best finish this year was 26th at Pickwick, but not really having a good year. The trend right now is really not in his favor. So right now he's currently 68th in the Angler of the Year standings. He's at 14-1. All right, and then the final angler on page number 1 at 14-1. You might have to help me out on this one, Matthew.
Masayuki Mashita?
Yeah, that's it. He does have $88,000 in career earnings. This is going to be his first Bassmaster Classic. He did win at Sam Rayburn.
He's on a tear right now.
He really is. He's got 3 top 15 since his win.
I've noticed that. He's in the Open Angler of the Year this year. It's going to be hard to track down.
Yeah, what's going to be interesting to see how he adapts to the conditions at Lake Ray Roberts. I have him at 14-1. All right. Moving on, page number 2. At 14-1, once again, this is an action play because this guy, kind of a sleeper, but definitely not a sleeper when it comes to experience. Todd Auden from South Carolina, $680,000 in earnings, but not having a great year. He's 63rd in the Angler of the Year standings. He did not have that great of Lake Fork event this year in April. He finished 48th. In November of last year, he finished 72nd at Lake Fork. Back in May of 2019, he finished 52nd. He has been to 4 Bassmaster Classics. He did finish second at Guntersville back in 2020. And something that stuck out in my research, back in 2008, he finished 97th at Falcon Lake. Do you remember a characteristic about that event?
Down there flipping trees?
It was a shallow and a deep bite.
Okay.
Guys were catching them both ways. So consistency, not that great. Like I said, he's not really having that great of a year. He's 63rd, but an enormous amount of experience. That's why I have him at 14-1. All right, next up, Jake Whittaker, the North Carolina pro, 12-1. Once again, not having that great of a year. He's 61st in the Angler of the Year standings. He has over 300,000 career earnings at Bass. This year at Lake Fork, he finished 73rd. Previous year, he finished 32nd. Then back in May of 2019, he finished 57th. 2 Bassmaster Classics prior to this one. He finished 30th at Guntersville in 2020. In 2021, he did finish 6th. That's been his best finish at the Tennessee River. But that was followed by finishes 91st, 41st, 73rd, 46th, and 34th. So the trend not really there. But what is a characteristic about everybody for the most part from North Carolina? What are they good at?
Frog and swim jig, shallow water fishing.
What are they good at?
Dock fishing. Blueback herring lakes.
Oh my gosh, dude.
The trend of
cranking.
Okay.
Guys from North Carolina love to crank.
Okay.
All right. And there's a lot of lakes in North Carolina that it gets cut into your teeth, the cranking aspect of this game. Now, I don't know if he's a cranker, but being from North Carolina, I'm going to go ahead and factor that in. That he probably has tried the outbite cranking a little bit. So we'll see on that. All right, next up. 12-1, Paul Mueller from Connecticut, $620,000 in career earnings, but having a really, really unproductive year, 75th in the Angler of the Year standings. He does have 3 previous Bassmaster Classics. appearances. He finished 86th at Lake Fork this year, finished 55th back in November of 2020. And then May 2019, he finished 26th. Yeah, he won at Lanier in 2019. He won at the SJR. But he's really, really struggling. He did finish second in the Bassmaster Classic.
The biggest bag ever.
Yeah, at Guntersville in 2014. But once again, I'm going with the trends. Yes, he does have the experience. Yes, he does have the adaptability, but I still have him at 12-1. All right, next up at 12-1, Taku Ito. Sorry. 188,000 in career earnings, currently 30th in the Angler of the Year standings. No previous classic experience. He did finish 7th at Lake Fork this year, finished 50th back in November of 2020. Did not fish it in May of 2019. He's got 2 top 10s this year, Fork and at the Sabine, and his last 2 events, 58th and 69th. So the trend is not going. And what he did at the Sabine River was pretty cool to watch and pretty amazing how he caught his fish there. I just don't know if he's going to be able to pull it off at Lake Ray Roberts.
I'm surprised that you've got Canterbury up next at 12-1 as well. So you have Canterbury tied with a number of different guys. You're talking about an Angler of the Year winner. You're talking about a guy with
let me get into why
on the FLW Tour.
Let me get into why.
Talking about a guy who's cashed 3 consecutive checks on Lake Fork.
Let me get into why.
Okay.
All right, Scott Canterbury, 12-1, the Alabama Pro, former Angler of the Year, 400,000 in career earnings. Currently not having that great of a year, 62nd in the Angler of the Year standings. 1 previous Bassmaster Classic. This year, he finished 42nd at Lake Fork. Back in 2020, finished 22nd, and then back in May of 2019, finished 49th. In 2020, he did finish 2nd at Lake Eufaula in the month of June. What's the characteristics about that, Matthew?
Was it flooded then? Lake Eufaula in June? Offshore.
That's
brush
right.
Pile, shallow brush piles.
Fishing out. He does have that uncanny ability to be able to find the cover and the structure, however you want to say it. And as I mentioned, 1 previous classic, he finished 46th at Guntersville. I think that is an action play. Sure, if you want to go on the past, go ahead, throw $100 down at 12-1. But I'm telling you, the trend is not there for Mr. Canterbury. All right, next up, 12-1 also. Matt Airy, North Carolina, currently 40th in the Angler of the Year race. He has 1 previous classic. He finished 43rd back in 2020 at Guntersville. Finished 18th this year at Lake Fork, 61st in November of 2020, and the most important one, 19th at Lake Fork back in May of 2019. 12-1. Next up, 11-1, David Mullins, the Tennessee Pro, 570,000 in career earnings, currently 39th in the Angler of the Year standings. 1 previous classic, and he did finish 13th at Guntersville. Back in 2020, finished 34th at Lake Fork. This year, 47th in 2020 and 46th back in May of 2019. His last 3 events, 34th, 30th, and 28th. Yes, he did win at Douglas back in 2016, and he finished 13th at Pickwick. I don't know. I think 11-1 is a good play on him.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, next up, Bill Lowen. One of the millionaires in career earnings in the field at the 2021 Bassmaster Classic. $1.5 million in earnings, currently 44th in the Angler of the Year race. 10 previous classics with his best finish, 4th back in 2016 at Grand Lake. 74th at Lake Fork this year, 37th back in 2020, and 21st back in Lake Fork, or at Lake Fork back in May of 2019. He's slumping right now, Matt. Since his win, he has finished 42nd, 74th, 35th, and 70th.
I can live with that.
You don't think that's slumping?
Nah, he's got 2 checks in there.
You're all about the check, aren't you?
How to win. I think him along with Chris Jones should have skyrocketed up the odds list with the conditions that.
What do you think his out game is like?
Plus, if he doesn't have an out game,
he doesn't have an out game.
Plus, if you look at who the anglers picked to win in the gallery that came out last night, I would say out of the 30 slides, 15 of them said Bill Lowen.
All right.
So there's 2 reasons why I feel like he should be higher than that, just based on.
Do you
the
think
last
any of the
48
anglers
hours.
did any research?
I think they all talk to each other.
In the Bassmaster Classic, you think there's a lot of dock talk going on?
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot. It's a bass fishing tournament. I mean, really,
it's not just a bass fishing tournament, dude. It really isn't. I think you're way misconstrued there by thinking that it's just another bass tournament. Some guys will tell you that, but that definitely is not the case. All right, next up, 11-1, Drew Benton, the Georgia Pro, $600,000 in earnings, 3 previous classics. Let's see here, 19th at Lake Fork this year, 69th back in 2020, finished 10th back in May of 2019. His first tourney was back in 2000, and he went 4 out of 6 in, let's see here, 4 out of 6 in the top 20, and he was 27th at Toledo Bend back in 2016. Any idea what the prominent pattern was at Toledo Bend back in 2016, Matthew?
Did
KVD won
Kevin
it.
won that cranking a big plug?
That's right. All right, fishing out. So, hence, that's why I have him at 11-1.
You think cranking's going to be big?
I do, man.
Really?
That and a Carolina rig and a big worm.
Really? So
Yeah.
you're interesting. Okay.
All right, next up, Texas Pro Cody Bird. This guy's been around for a while. Yeah, he got through by winning in the Open, but he has $200,000 in earnings, 0 classic experience. But his very first tournament was back in 2000. He went 4 out of 6 top 10s in the Opens, and 4 of those lakes were very similar to Lake Ray Roberts. He won at Neely Henry back in October of 2020, but he finished 172nd at Pickwick this year in the Open, which was not predominantly, but definitely fishing out was a factor. I know he has experience on this lake. I'm not calling it the HFA, but he does have experience on this body of water. That's why I got it in an action play at 11-1.
Okay.
All right, next up, 10-1, Jason Williamson, the South Carolina Pro, part of the Millionaires Club, $1.2 million in earnings. Not having that great of a year, though. 69th in the Angler of the Year standings, 4 previous Bassmaster Classics. Finished 40th at Lake Fork this year. He had 2 top 20s this year, one being on the Tennessee River. He did win at Cherokee. His best finish... Oh, wait, that's the wrong guy. I'm sorry. I apologize on that. Let me back up a minute. 69th in the Angler of the Year, 37th at Lake Fork this year, 45th back in 2020, and 68 at Lake Fork back in May of 2019. His best classic finish was 11th at Guntersville back in 2020. The one thing about Jason, very, very versatile. He can do anything. He can fish shallow. He can fish deep. I got him at 10-1, looking for some action on that one.
I would probably flip. Like, I mean, I could easily see Williamson win it, but I don't understand why he's at 10-1 and you've got like Canterbury and Bill Lowen at 11 and 12-1. Like, what put Williamson ahead of Bill Lowen, who's won this year, and it's a shallow. It could be
because of the out factor.
Okay,
that's why.
And Canterbury, just because he's struggling.
Yeah, trends. Now, before I go to the next one, I'm going to read 3 more names, and then we're going to take a break because I need to get some water. Way too much talking here.
Yeah.
Some of the people out here are going, with 40-something anglers or whatever the number is, how can you have the odds greater than 40-1 or whatever? Mm-hmm. Look, this is a betting line. This is not the odds of winning. This is a betting line to get the fans to place bets and develop action as a sports book would do. Mm-hmm. All right, it has nothing to do with he's got a 10-1 or a 1 in 10 chance of winning. It's the odds on the betting line to where we're trying to get action, very similar to what sports books do. All right, 3 more and then we'll take a break. Next up, Matthew Robinson, the Kentucky Pro.
Robertson.
What'd I say?
You said Robinson.
Oh,
I know
okay,
you know
I'm sorry.
It's Robertson.
Robertson. Apologize for that. $125,000 in earnings. Let's see here. He finished currently 34th in the Angler of the Year standings. Did fish in one previous Bassmaster Classic. He finished 47th at Knoxville back in 2019. This year finished 40th at Lake Fork. He has 2 top 20s this year at the Sabine River and Tennessee River, and he did win at Cherokee. Mm-hmm. This is a trend guy. This is kind of a tease bet because at those odds, even though the experience is not really there, the guy's been doing this game for quite some time. I think that is an action play 100%.
Yeah, I would definitely drop him. Nothing against Mr. Robertson, but I would definitely drop him below Airy and Cannonberry and Lowen and Drew Benton.
You mean you would put higher odds?
Yeah,
than those guys?
I think he's a 12-1 guy.
Okay.
I mean, he did just out of, based on one classic in the past, but he also hasn't been doing it at this level very long. I mean, as opposed
see all the trophies that dude has?
Yeah, well, yeah, he's the king of Kentucky, and I know he has trophies, but I mean, Scott Canterbury has one that says Angler of the Year on it with the Bassmaster Elite Series, and Paul Mueller has like 3 of them that have it, and Jake Whittaker has a Rookie of the Year trophy, and David Mullins and Bill Lowen just got a win, and Drew Benton has a win.
Trends.
And I know he's won an Open, but...
All right, keep going. 2 more, and then we'll take a break.
I like this guy. Through. Next one, Chad Morgenthaler. He's also at 10-1.
Yeah, Chad Morgenthaler from Missouri, $690,000 in career earnings. An average year, 58th in the Angler of the Year standings, 6 previous classics. His best finish, 23rd at Lake Guntersville back in 2014. Had a great Lake Fork this year. Finished 8th, finished 27th back in 2020. But in May of 2019, finished 58th. He does have 2 top 20s this year. He's at 10-1.
He can pop them. He's not afraid of the big string. He's gonna probably do the same thing all
right, last one, and then we'll take a break.
I like how you just put Mizzou next to him.
Well, it was a spacing thing.
Yeah, I know.
And I spelled it correctly, too. Next up, 10-1, Shane LaHue, the North Carolina Pro, $251,000 in earnings, currently 25th in the Angler of the Year standings. 1 previous classic, finished 28th at Lake Guntersville in 2020. 41st this year at Lake Fork, 57th at Lake Fork back in 2020. And then in May 2019, finished 22nd. North Carolina dude, he's at 10-1. So there you have it. We're halfway through, have 2 pages left. Got a couple of objections from you, Matthew.
Not objections. I mean, this is what is it? Subjective or objective? This is one of them is like I think it's subjective.
Yeah.
Or no, it's objective.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
They're your odds.
Well,
there is no right or wrong answer on these. It's literally just an interpretation. But the whole point of it is to agree or disagree.
That's right.
To generate discussion.
All right, we're going to take a break.
You get your water?
I got one right here. Okay. We're going to come back and go through the final 2 pages here, wrap things up on the Classic Odds Show here on a Wednesday. Everybody stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Pro-inspired, pro-designed, tested and proven by legends on the water, dominating the tournament trail for over 50 years. Everything you need, one legendary brand. Strike King.
Hey guys, Major League Fishing Pro Jacob Wheeler here with my new Signature Series line of rods with Ducket Fishing. We have my 7.2 cranking rod right here. Crankbaits can be very fickle, and having the right, having a lot of tip can be too much, and having not enough tip can, lose a lot of fish. So you really got to be careful. If there's 1 or 2 techniques that I'm really adamant about having the perfect action as a crankbait, especially like the square bill, a DT6, those medium running crankbaits in the springtime when those fish's mouth are pretty tough. That's when I'm really, really, really on top of having my actions just perfect.
Big companies get bigger and bigger and talk about their fancy labs where they study fish behavior, but then they all go golfing on the weekend. We don't have a large laboratory to test baits. Why, you ask? We don't need a big laboratory because our pros fish, our employees fish, our salespeople fish, our suppliers fish, our mold builders fish, our owners fish, and our kids fish. This is our laboratory. Our R&D comes from time on the water, learning how to make fish bite. All that time on the water brings us thousands of hours of testing new products and improving current ones for all species.
All of us on the Pro Tournament Trail use Gamakatsu hooks.
Why?
Because they are absolutely the best.
It's not about how many bites you get.
It's how many you put in the boat.
Gamakatsu makes hooks for every fishing style.
We didn't come this far to lose fish.
Did you?
For more information, visit gamakatsu.com.
Guys, what makes our Spro lures beat the competition?
I mean, you have to admit, we nailed it with my McSticks and rock crawlers.
Man, we've all won money on my plugs.
My Wamick shop put fish in my boat. One thing's for sure, we all count on our Spro lures to beat the competition.
Designing cutting-edge baits with some of America's top anglers. Spro lures beat the competition. To see the entire lineup, visit a retailer near you or spro.com.
The Ned Rig. What rod should I be using with the Ned Rig? My favorite is the Denali Lithium multi-spin rod. It's our 7'4" length, great Ned Rig rod. It's got a great sensitive tip on it. It's long enough where I can make long casts, which you're usually fishing clear water with a Ned Rig, and it's got enough backbone to get those fish in. So check it out, Denali Lithium Series 7'4" multi-spin.
All right, we are back. It is a Wednesday. Folks, don't forget tomorrow, day 4, with Mr. Frank Scalish, and we're going to talk a little Bassmaster Classic memories with Uncle Frank. And I'm sure he's got some great stories, so make sure you check that out tomorrow. Same time, day 4 with Frank Scalish. All right, Matt, let's continue with my classic odds for this year, and we're still on 10-1 right now. Next up, Jamie Hartman, the Arkansas pro, $610,000 in earnings, currently 57th in the Angler of the Year race, 2 previous classics, finished 30th at Lake Hartwell back in 2018. He finished 50th at Lake Fork this year, 42nd back in 2020, 15th back in May of 2019. His best finish this year was 25th at Neely Henry. He's kind of a guy that, once again, an action play at 10-1. Usually he can figure some stuff out.
Kind of been struggling a little bit lately.
Yeah.
Remember when he came on, it was Jamie the Hammer, and he had the 6 top 10s, and then he had the year with multiple wins. He had that crazy win at Gunnersville. He won on his home lake, basically, at Cayuga on the grass. He could do no wrong, and then he had kind of some injuries and some setbacks, and he's just getting back in the swing, but would not be surprising to see him in the mix. I think this next guy should be higher.
All right, he's talking about Austin Felix. Have him at 10-1. No previous classics. $180,000 in career earnings. Currently 29th in the Angler of the Year race. This year he finished 10th at Lake Fork, 68th back in 2020. He did finish 24th at Lake Eufaula back in June of 2020. He's got 3 top 15s his last 3 events. Once again, that's an action play, but I think the key stat here, 0 Bassmaster Classic experience.
I mean, what the dude's nickname is Sleepy. We've had him on. I don't think he fishes in pajamas. I don't think that I think there's a few guys who aren't intimidated by the big stage.
Yeah.
And I think Austin is that, because you have to remember he was over at FLW for a number of years and has 3 top 15 finishes in the Forest Wood Cup, including a 6th place in 2019.
You're right.
And those are all during the summer on tough fisheries.
What would you put him at? If you had to put odds on
8 to 1.
Okay, well, I'm not far off on that.
Well, I mean, your odds aren't that spread out. There's a big difference between 8 to 1 and 12 to 1. There's a whole page.
Yeah. He's a 10 to 1.
I kind of went back to, there's a bunch of guys who have fished, and you have to understand, if you're fishing FLW in the Cup, that's still either $300,000 or $500,000, and it's hard to make that championship, and it's during the summer, and it's typically tough. So you can't. I mean, that's why I go back to Scott Canterbury. He's almost won a Cup. I mean, remember, he came agonizingly close. I believe it was just an ounce, and he's had a ton of Forest Wood Cup experience, and that's a big stage there. They go through the whole ringer there: the black tie dinner, the 4 days, the practice, the media.
I'm with you, man. But the key this year, trends. And we're going to continue to look at the trends. All right, next up, Stetson Blaylock, Arkansas Pro, 10 to 1, $600,000 in career earnings, currently 36th in the Angler of the Year standings. One previous Classic. He did finish 3rd at Guntersville back in 2020. His best finish this year was 26th at Lake Fork. And here's kind of an obscure thing that I went back and looked at with him. He did finish 2nd at Fort Gibson back in September of 2015. And that was a combination where the water was up a little bit, but you had to catch some fish out also. A very, very difficult tournament with a lot of things happening back in September of 2015 at Fort Gibson. So I have him at 10 to 1. Next up, we get into single digits. 9 to 1, Hunter Shryok, the Ohio Pro, $340,000 in career earnings, having a pretty decent year, 27th in the Angler of the Year standings. He did fish in one previous Classic at Guntersville, came in 25th back in 2020. Did not have that great a Lake Fork performance this year. 53rd this year at Lake Fork. Last year, 21st, 2019, 27th. This is a guy, when you look at his stats, he's got a lot of 20s, 30s, and 40th place finishes.
Right. I think he's, and I like Hunter. I got nothing against him. We're strictly going off of this for the betting. I don't think you get any action at Hunter at 9 to 1. I think Hunter belongs in the 14 to 1 category.
Okay.
I mean, he hasn't really contended for a win. He's still young on it. He doesn't have a ton of Classic experience. I mean, dude, you've got Hunter Shryok, and I'm not ripping on you. But, I mean, you've got Hunter Shryok at 9 to 1, and you've got Scott Canterbury and Matt Airy and Bill Lowen at 12 to 1.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not like
what's
Hunter's
been the trend?
I don't. The trend doesn't do that for me. Where was his trend? I don't get his trend. I want guys who win. I don't care about mid-20s and 30s in the Bassmaster Classic.
Okay, so
I want experience and guys who are in position to win.
You would have the guy who won at the Sabine River.
Was that Mueller, wasn't it?
No, it's Jason Christie.
Oh, yeah. He was running.
Okay. But let's say it was, I don't know, Scott Canterbury.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Obviously, his odds would be lower, not higher, if he did have a win. But what you have to look at is this body of water does not have that much history. Okay. So you have to look at trends. You're just saying, hey, if somebody won on Lake Erie, you think that they should have lower odds?
You also have to remember that a couple of these years on Lake Fork was sight fishing. I mean, Brandon Cobb won at sight fishing. That's totally different than it was.
It wasn't in May. I went back and looked. That's why I said that May event on Lake Fork is truly the closest thing that you can compare. Then I went back and I looked at trends when you had a situation where fish were being caught out and in, because that is going to happen. Do you agree or disagree with that?
Based on everything that we've talked to, the anglers I've talked to, and the guys who fish it a lot, yeah.
Okay. So that's why I did what I did. All right, next up, 9 to 1, Buddy Gross, $275,000 in earnings. No previous Classic experiences. He did win on Lake Eufaula in 2020, June of 2020. Finished 10th this year at Pickwick. He's got 2 top 20s in 21, Pickwick and Neely Henry, and currently 22nd in the Angler of the Year standings. Buddy Gross at 9 to 1.
I think he's either going to be top 10 or bottom 10.
Probably.
And, he's dealing with a little bit of an injury. But shockingly, he's only fished in one Forrest Wood Cup either.
Yeah.
2019. But if there's a guy who's going to be committed to 5 or 6 bites a day, I feel like it would be Buddy Gross.
All right, next up, continuing at 9-1, Micah Frazier, the Georgia Pro, $590,000 in career earnings. Not having that great of a year this year, 73rd in the Angler of the Year standings, but he does have 4 previous Bassmaster Classics. He did finish 5th at Guntersville in 2020. He's had 3 top 15s in the Bassmaster Classic, but did not do well at Lake Fork this year, finished 61st, 67th in 2020. But he did finish 3rd back in May of 2019 at Lake Fork. I've got him at 9-1. All right, next up at 9-1, Brandon Card, $675,000 in earnings, 26th in the current Angler of the Year standings. 3 previous classics. He did finish 9th at Guntersville in 2020. Let's see here. Let's see.
Here you going, Brandon Card?
Yeah, but I don't know if that's correct or not. Did he finish 2nd at Lake Texoma back in 2016? I don't think that's right.
It sounds right. I 100% know he made the final day. I think he was catching him on a topwater.
Yeah. And then 8th at Kentucky Lake back in 2015.
He's a guy who, if there's something sneaky or weird or off the wall to be found.
Yeah.
I mean, remember what he did when he was leading Ross Barnett? He was top water in the marina there. He's gotten back in little ponds. He always does some weird, quirky stuff. And sometimes that's what it takes to win.
All right, 9-1 on Brandon Carr. Next up.
Oh, this is the action play of all action plays right here.
8-1, Clark Wendlandt, former Angler of the Year, previous year. The Texas Pro, $612,000 in earnings, just bass earnings. All right, he's well over $1 million in total earnings. 3 previous classics. His best finish was 9th at Guntersville back in 2020. When you go back and you look at his history, he finished 7th at Falcon Lake back in March of 2013, 8th at Kentucky Lake in 2015, 2nd at Lake Texoma back in 2016, and hang on, I was reading the wrong guy. Jeez. I got messed up. All right. Rewind.
Not done
Let
well.
Me start over.
Basically, he's not done well at Lake Fork.
Let me start over. All right. Currently 65th in the Angler of the Year standings. Right. He's had 4 previous classics. He's finished 11th, 12th, 13th, and 35th. Done very well.
Yes.
But at Lake Fork, finished 93rd this year, and I remember watching him.
You're putting way too much on Lake Fork, dude.
We'll get to that. All right. 28th at Lake Fork back in November of 2020. 60th Lake Fork, May of 2019. Interesting enough, this year at Guntersville, the last event, he finished 90th. All right.
The guy is Clark Wendlandt. He has 4 Angler of the Years. He has 6 top 10 finishes and has fished over 20 Forrest Wood Cups. You look at his career earnings, he's coming off of an Angler of the Year season. Yeah, he's a little bit down, but he's fishing in his home state. How much did Jeff Reynolds say? This is a spot lake. This is a lake where you're going to pull up and know where that little rock is if you're going to catch him offshore. Mm-hmm. And you've got Clark Wendlandt tied with Kyle Welcher and Brian New, who have never even been in a classic.
Keep going. What do you think he should be at?
I think Clark should be at 5-1 or 4-1. I think Clark should be in the top 6 guys in this entire thing.
All right. If I do what I've done for this entire odds, all right, the trend on him is 8-1.
But history trumps trend here.
I totally disagree.
To disagree with you.
So I should pick Rick Clunn on every single Elite Series tournament then?
No.
That's what you just said. History trumps trends.
I think when it comes to a classic, a championship event, and top 10 finishes, I think Clunn would be dangerous in a classic.
I'm not disagreeing with that. That's why I have him at 8-1. But you cannot say that history trumps the current trend.
For certain guys, I don't care. I don't care if Clark Wendlandt had finished dead last in every single event.
You would still pick him.
I would still pick him
and
in
throw
this
down
event.
your money at 8-1, and you'll be a genius.
I would
all right?
100% throw my money down on Clark Wendlandt based on everything that I've heard. The guy likes to flip, doesn't he? Remember, I mean, he's done well on Travis
I'm not
before.
saying he
knows
doesn't.
fork.
I'm not saying he doesn't. Here's the other factor with Clark.
This is a standalone event, too.
All right, here's the other factor with Clark. Yes, he has spent a lot of time on that water. You know why? Because of the filming that he's done, not only for his show, but some of the things that he's done for Wade Middleton also. I just think the trend with him, dude, he finished, what was it? In the 90s at Guntersville, his last event.
You want to put 20, let's put a Chick-fil-A lunch on it that Clark finishes in the top 10. I say yes.
Done.
All right.
All right. Has he ever finished in the top 10 in 4 previous classics? No, he's been close. All right. You take that combined with the trend that he is going on right now, fine. If he's in the top 10, you got Chick-fil-A on me.
But I think you can take the history that he has, and you think Clark has entered all of his championship events just riding a high of momentum. That guy knows how to set it aside and fish a standalone event.
Then why didn't he do that at Guntersville on the last event?
Did
he not have an enormous amount of experience at Guntersville?
He's fishing for points there. You're making different decisions.
He finished 90th, Matt.
Event. I know, but that's different than a classic. That's different than a cup.
I agree.
You go finish 52nd in the classic, everyone goes, oh, that sucks. But I'm one of the guys who believes in some instances, like a Skeet Reese always did this. Like he'd either be right there to win or he'd finish dead last because he knew it doesn't matter. It does matter, but in the grand scheme of things, as far as overall longevity run, it doesn't matter whether you finish 12th or 52nd in the Bassmaster Classic.
Here's the other thing.
So at least I just think he knows how to fish standalone events. He's been in a more than any other guy in the entire field here. He's fished over a dozen more championship events than
when you throw in the FLW stuff
anybody in the field. He's fished 19 Forest Wood Cups. Look at the list of guys who has fished classics.
I'm not taking anything away from the guy. All right, he's a reigning Angler of the Year. He's an absolute stud, but the trend is that is why he's set at 8-1. Here's the other thing. The years that he's fished the Classic, 95, 96, 98, and 01. It's been a while. It's been over 10 years.
I mean, even if he'd never fished a Forest Wood Cup, he's still in the top half of the guys with Classic experience.
All right, Chick-fil-A, 8-1.
Disrespectful to Clark Wendlandt.
It is not disrespectful. All right? I give the guy a ton of props. Heck, I got the guy an OKC Blazers jersey with his name on the back.
I'd avoid him in the media room is all I'm saying.
I'm rooting against Clark Wendlandt. That's not what I'm doing. I'm basing the information on the trends and what he has showcased lately.
Okay.
All right? But for you to say that history is more important than trends is not a true statement.
Then why don't you just take the trends of who's 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th in the Angler of the Year this year, and if they're in the Classic, they're your highest odds because they're catching them the best right now.
That's not it. All right? It's a combination of both.
Okay.
All right?
Okay. All
right, next up, Kyle Welcher. And hopefully I won't get this line mixed up like I did the last one. 190,000 in earnings. Having a great year, currently 7th in the Angler of the Year standings. No previous Classics. His last 5 events, 36th, 13th, 8th, 22nd, 39th, and 17th. Finished 22nd at Lake Fork this year, 54th back in 2020. His worst finish this year was 47th at the SJR. So, pretty versatile. Yep. I got him at 8-1.
I like that. I think you did this right because I put these two guys in the same category.
All right.
And I think that you've got them right where they need to be.
All right. Next up, 8-1, Brian New, North Carolina Pro, 230,000 in earnings. Currently 19th in the Angler of the Year race. No previous Classic experience. Finished 85th at Lake Fork. Had a horrible Lake Fork. Won at the SJR and Kissimmee, his very first event that he fished in. He finished 4th at Louisville, too. More importantly, his last 2 events, 6th and 16th. The trend is with Brian New.
He can catch him, but he can also miss.
You're right.
Because
You're right. All right. 8-1. Brandon Lester, Tennessee Pro, 750,000 in earnings. Currently 28th in the Angler of the Year. 5 previous Classics. Best finish, 6th back in 2019. He finished 7th in 2020. Finished 24th at Lake Fork this year. 12th back in 2020 and 37th in May. Interesting stat from a historical standpoint. He did finish 9th at Kentucky Lake back in 2015. In 2018, he had 5 consecutive top 5s. I like him at 8-1. Next up, the first of the Johnson brothers, 8-1, Corey Johnston, $360,000 in career earnings with Bass. Currently 9th in the Angler of the Year race. Finished 47th in the Bassmaster Classic at Guntersville in 2020. 27th this year at Lake Fork. 60th in 2020. More importantly, he finished 9th back in May of 2019. His last 3, 27th, 20, and 11th at Guntersville. Really good trend going with him. That's definitely an action play. I know a lot of people like him and his brother, but I got Corey at 8-1. Next up, Gussie, 8-1, $320,000 in career earnings, currently 45th in the Angler of the Year race. One previous classic, 31st at Guntersville, finished 30th this year at Lake Fork, 83rd in 2020, but finished 5th back in 2019. Since the win at the Tennessee River, he's finished 89th, 72nd, 30th, 34th, and 73rd. Not a great trend, but I still like him at 8-1.
Isn't there a bunch more grass in Fork than there is in Ray Roberts, though?
There is. Remember what Reynolds said?
Yeah, but don't you think the more grass there is in a fishery, the more the northern guys tend to excel? So if you take the grass out, like it'd be easier to survive, and I can't remember exactly how those two have caught him on Fork before, but it's easier to survive a Fork tournament with grass than it is a hardcover Ray Roberts tournament just on experience. So I understand that, but I think you also have to take that into account a little bit.
Is there another lake that you believe that you can do a comparison to, in your opinion, Ray Roberts to what lake?
I would guess Lake Fork would be the closest.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I've only seen Ray Roberts one time.
Yeah, but you know the characteristics about the lake.
Yeah,
Talk to people that have fished on it.
It seems like a power fisherman's lake.
It does.
And it seems like there's a lot of dead water on the lake.
There is.
But it also seems like you can get healthy in a hurry.
You can. That's the mystique of this classic, and I've already said it. It's going to be fantastic to watch all 3 days.
You know what it kind of reminds me of?
What's that?
Just based on what I've seen with the potential for big bass hard is it's like if you were to expand Dripping Springs
here in Oklahoma.
Does that make sense?
A little bit, yeah. Maybe. I could see that. People across the nation are not really familiar with that body of water, but I could see that. If you're in Oklahoma, you probably know what Matt's talking about. All right, next up, 8-1. Drew Cook, $300K in career earnings, currently 13th in the Angler of the Year standings. One previous classic, finished 22nd at Lake Guntersville. Finished 31st this year at Lake Fork, 65th last year. More importantly, 6th at Lake Fork back in May of 2019. When you look back at 2020, that June event that took place at Lake Eufaula, he finished 5th. This year, his best finish was his Lake Fork finish at 31st. So I have him at 8-1. All right, Chad Pipkins, 7-1. I got to look at both pages here.
This would be an insider trade issue with
$630,000 in career earnings, currently 42nd in the Angler of the Year standings. 3 previous classics. His best finish, 41st at Hartwell. His best 21 finish, 9th place at Pickwick. All right, he finished 28th at Fork this year, 18th last year, and 8th back in 2019. The trend is with Pipkins. That's why I've got him at 7-1. All right. We're getting closer to the favorites now.
I like this one right here. People are going to be like, why would I put money on this guy?
All right. 7-1. This Oklahoma Pro, Luke Palmer.
Right where he needs to be.
All right. $263,000 in earnings, currently 24th in the Angler of the Year race. One previous classic In his first Classic, he finished 15th at Lake Guntersville. This year, 8th at Lake Fork. Last year, 40th at Lake Fork. Back in 2019, 11th at Lake Fork. His last 5, 43rd, 24th, 35th, 29th, and 8th at the last event at Lake Guntersville. This guy is on a roll. And when you look at his stats, he's another guy that has a lot of 20s, a lot of 30s, very few 40s. He does not have the bomb.
He got on a little deal at Guntersville in the Classic last year, a year and a half ago, and I remember talking to him afterwards, and he had, I think, some issues with some non-Classic competitors getting on some of his stuff, but he's as cool as it gets. Like, I don't think the lack of, only one Classic under his belt affects him at all, and I think he will be right at home, extremely comfortable on Ray Roberts.
Agree, 100%.
Very comfortable. Like, I would, if you'd even had him at 5-1, I wouldn't have blinked.
Yeah. All right, next up, 7-1, Brock Mosley. $500,000 in career earnings, having a good year, 15th in Angler of the Year, one previous Classic, finished 40th at Lake Guntersville, 32nd at Lake Fork this year, 8th last year, 72nd at Lake Fork in May of 2019. 4 top 10s this year. He did finish 91st at Lake Guntersville, but then I go back to a previous lake that I had mentioned earlier. He did finish 22nd at Fort Gibson back in 2015. I like the momentum. I know
he's a trend guy. He's a trend guy. He's been catching him everywhere we go, where he's not supposed to, where he is supposed to.
Yeah,
I get it. Brock's been one of the most consistent anglers over the past year and a half. We talked about it on the show. I talked about it. I just doesn't get the notoriety he probably deserves.
Yep. All right, 7-1. The other Johnston brother, Chris. $425,000 in earnings, having a great year, 4th in Angler of the Year standings. One previous Classic, 34th at Lake Guntersville in 2020. 7th at Lake Fork this year, 44th last year, 40th back in May of 2019. 3 out of his last 4 events have been top 10s. His worst finish was 36th at Neely Henry. I like him at 7-1. He could win the thing very easily.
Yep.
All right, next up, John Cox, 7-1, $400,000 in earnings, 37th in the Angler of the Year standings. 2 previous Classics, best finish, 20th at Lake Hartwell back in 2018, 20th at Lake Fork this year, 16th last year.
And one of those Classics he didn't practice for at all.
Yeah.
I know that. Same kind of deal with this one, where he went from another event directly to the Classic.
Yeah.
Do you think he's such an anomaly that you just throw that out the window, the lack of practice?
You kind of have to. I mean, that's why he's at 7-1. I thought 7-1 was the right place for him. All right, next up.
Plus, he's won a cup.
Yeah. Next up, Brandon Cobb, $400,000 in earnings, having a great season, 10th in the Angler of the Year standings. One previous Classic, did not perform well, came in 50th, 25th at Lake Fork this year, 54th last year. Won at Lake Fork back in May of 2019. I go back to that June Lake Eufaula event back in 2020. He finished 4th in that event. I really, really like him a lot at 7-1.
Yeah. Do you know he's only fished in 4 Forest Wood Cups? Because a lot of these guys were FLW guys.
Yeah.
3rd, 9th, 3rd, and 9th. 4 top 10.
Yeah. Definitely should get some action on Brandon Cobb at 7-1.
Like the less grass there is in the pond, and the more he can cover water, the better Brandon Cobb is.
Yep. All right, next up, 6-1, the leading career earnings guy in the field, $1.9 million in career earnings, only on the Bass side, not on the FLW side. Steve Kennedy, 6-1. Currently 31st in the Angler of the Year standings, 9 previous Classics. Best finish, he finished 2nd at the Conroe event. Back in 2006, he was 5th at Falcon. He was 3rd at Lake Amistad in 2007, 6th at Kentucky Lake in 2009, 3rd at Pickwick in 2010. What are the characteristics about all those events, Matt?
Steve did well there.
Very good.
The characteristics of all those events.
From a pattern standpoint. Any idea?
Kind of the same time of the year as this Classic?
Yeah, that's one of them. The other one, in and out.
There was an in bite and an out bite.
Yeah, Steve Kennedy he's my pick to win.
Yeah, 6-1.
I mean, he's coming. He had a horrible year the last couple of years. He's coming in, like you said, he's coming in hot.
Yeah,
back-to-back top fives.
Yeah,
and I don't know. So here was my thing: does Steve have an out game?
Yeah.
What I was racking my brain, like, when was the last time Steve caught him out? Like, I just can't remember him deep cranking or throwing a worm.
He
or
threw
a
the
rig.
football jig at Clear Lake.
Yeah.
In deep water.
That's kind of a outlier, that tournament. That was a freak show. He also threw a Huddleston and thought there were rainbow trout in the lake. I mean,
he does have an out game.
Show me a tournament where he's caught him dragging a worm fishing brush piles. And I'm not saying he doesn't.
Ledges, Kentucky Lake, Pickwick.
Yeah, but a lot of those he was up in the bushes shallow. Throwing a frog, throwing a swim jig.
Yeah, he was doing both.
Flipping.
Both.
We'll
see.
And I'm like I said,
you think I'm good at 6-1 on that?
Still my pick to win.
6-1 good on him?
Yeah, as long as he doesn't get stuck with the swim bait. That was why I asked Jeff Reynolds that.
Yeah. All right, next up, another millionaire in career earnings, Hank Cherry, 6-1. Currently 17th in the Angler of the Year standings. 5 previous classics. Everybody knows he won in 2020 at Guntersville. 57th this year at Lake Fork, though. 29th last year, 18th in 2019. He did finish 68th at Falcon back in 2013 and 18th at that event on Lake Eufaula in June of 2020. This guy's got moxie, man. And
moxie.
And even though being the reigning Bassmaster Classic champion, will we see back-to-back champions? I don't know. But I think he definitely has a shot based upon his trend and based upon what he's really good at. And
Here's
that is
the thing,
adaption.
He's not a flipper. I remember one of the first times he was ever doing that was at Toledo Bend when he was catching them off the docks and the cypress and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So can he get a bite going in his wheelhouse with a plug and a jerkbait?
Yeah.
That's the question.
It's a good question.
Could a jerkbait play here? Is that out?
I mean,
is
the
it
clarity,
too dirty?
Yeah, it is. I don't think a jerkbait plays. Now, spinnerbait might play, which is kind of bizarre, June, summertime. But definitely could come into play.
When you see the fishery, the way it sets up, the way everything's headed, Hank Cherry does not come to mind. But like you said, moxie, history, defending champion.
Yeah.
Hard to put him low.
Yeah. 6-1. That's where I got him at. All right, next one.
So now wait, we have how many? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 left. So we are now in the top 5 of your picks. There are 5 anglers
lowest
left.
odds. Not picks, lowest odds.
Yes.
Okay. All right, next up. The angler that I feel has the greatest HFA. I talk about the HFA all the time on this show. I think this guy's he has spent a ton of time on this lake. He's done his homework. Talking about Chris Zaldain. I have him at 5-1, $900,000 in career earnings, 51st in the Angler of the Year standings, 5 previous classics. I'm sure people remember his 12th place finish back in 2019 at Knoxville. 5th at Lake Fork this year, 13th last year, 13th back in 2019, 5th at Lake Guntersville this year. Definitely the HFA. I got him at 5-1. Whether or not the swim bait will come into play, I doubt it, but you never know with him.
Here's my thing about Zaldain. Is it possible for someone to want it too much? He's staying at home. He just came out with a 40-minute guided tour of the greater Fort Worth area with Trait. He's been doing all sorts of appearances, media events, welcome to Texas stuff. I know he's put countless time on the water when he can.
Yeah.
Relocated there, really made it his home.
Yeah.
My only concern is he might want it too bad. And
does he not want every tournament too bad though?
Yeah, but dude, I just remember when he was right there going into that final day at Knoxville.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me at all I could easily see you putting him as the favorite to win the tournament, but I also could see a sly play, maybe dropping him down to 8-1 to really generate a lot of action.
Well, you got a point there.
So you're at 5-1. I'm fine with him in the top 5. It's hard not to put him in it, but I think that out of everybody, as far as off the water and in your own head,
yeah,
I think he's got the biggest uphill climb out of everybody in this field.
Yeah, I agree. All right, next up, at 5-1, Patrick Walters, 590,000 career earnings, currently third in the Angler of the Year standings. One previous classic, finished 32nd at Lake Guntersville back in 2020. This year, finished second at Lake Fork, first at Lake Fork in 2020, 29th back in 2019. He's got 3 top 12s this year. Dude can frickin' catch him.
Ed probably will catch him for the next 30 years.
Yeah. So Patrick at 5-1. Next up, Brandon Pollinick, 4-1, $1.57 million in career earnings. Currently 5th in the Angler of the Year standings. 9 previous classics. His best finish, second at Grand Lake back in 2013. What's funny is his very first event back, all right, when he came back, was he finished 108 at Kissimmee. Then he just went ballistic. All right. He has this is one of the stats of the month right here. He has the best average finish of any of the top 5 guys in the odds this year. His average finish
for what?
645 divided by 23 events is 28.04 plays.
How'd you get to 28 plays. Since he came back to the Elite
Since he came back, 23 events.
Because I'd say the best average finish this year would be the Angler of the Year leader.
No.
So this is 2 years.
23 events.
Plus all the W's.
Yeah. And that includes the Opens, too. Anything and everything that he's fished. His last 23 events, his average finish is 28
I see the go big or go home deals all about Chris Zaldain.
Yeah.
Brandon plays that game, too. In the classics, in the championship events.
Yeah. Finished 14th at Fork this year. 4th back in 2020, and then he didn't fish it in 2019.
And you saw what he did with the... I mean, he does some interesting stuff. What he did at Santee Cooper.
Yeah.
That was kind of that, a little bit fall, but a tougher kind of weird bite.
You know, I did speak with him this week, and if practice is an indication of what's going to happen, he's got some work to do because he did not have that great of a practice.
So I said you've got some guys on here that I've heard secondhand are having incredibly good practices.
Yeah.
And other guys who are really struggling. But I feel with a guy like Brandon Pollinick, I mean, it doesn't matter whether he catches one bass during practice or thinks he's on 40 pounds a day during practice.
You're right. So Brandon Pollinick, 4-1. All right, next guy at 4-1. Matt Herron. A lot of discussion about this guy amongst the media people across the nation. $1 million in bass earnings, currently 12th in the Angler of the Year standings. 8 previous Bassmaster Classics. Best finish was 7th at Lay Lake in 2010. This year he was 13th at Fork. Last year 51st. 20th back in May of 19. Went back. I looked at June of 2010 at Kentucky Lake. He did finish 8th. He also won the TTBC back in 2016 on Lake Ray Roberts. And here's a very obscure stat that I don't know exactly what it means, but it is tied into the whole trend thing. All right. 4 out of the last 5 events when he has a sub 50 performance, 50th place performance, he has earned a top 15 finish directly after those events.
So you're saying he bounces back?
He does bounce back.
Let me guess.
All right.
Let me guess. Where did he finish?
He finished 50th at Guntersville.
Oh, so he slides in. So guaranteed top 15.
But is that not a great stat? So every time he has a sub 50th finish,
he gets pissed off.
He gets mad and he bounces back and he has a top 15 finish. So I like him at 4-1. He can definitely do both. He can fish out. He can fish in. He does have experience. He does have a win on Lake Ray Roberts. That's why I have him.
You think he's going to fish out?
4-1. Maybe. He's sneaky,
man.
I
don't think he fishes out at all. I don't think
really.
We've seen
you think he just stays
Matt
shallow
Herron in anything but flipping.
He will be doing that, but we'll see on that. All right. So one angler remains.
Numero uno.
This is the first time in the history that I've done this where I don't have somebody at even odds at 1-1.
Mm-hmm. Like what? You've had Ott before?
Yeah,
and he
even
won,
money.
And you had Christie on Grand.
At even
or
money.
Edwin was even money there, too.
Yeah.
At Conroe, what? Keith Combs?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's been a distinct, this guy should win this event guy for a number of the past classics.
Yeah.
There isn't here.
So at 2-1 in the odds, Seth Fighter, $740,000 in career earnings. He is leading the Angler of the Year race. 3 previous classics. His best finish, 4th at Guntersville in 2020. He finished 6th this year at Lake Fork, 11th last year, 12th in 2019. I also went back and looked at some of the other lakes from an out perspective. He finished 3rd at Fort Gibson back in 2012. He's got 8 top 25s in a row and 3 top 12s. This is why the guy is leading the Angler of the Year race, and I think we are going to see the versatility that this guy has in his game. He is a sprouting superstar in the sport, and he is at 2-1. Go ahead, see if you can double your money. He has the lowest odds that I've put together this year at 2-1.
I want like some parlays. Is that where you could pick like a 1-2-3 finish of Seth Fighter, Matt Robertson, and Corey Johnson?
Yeah, that would be cool
for the party parlay.
Yeah, yeah.
You could have
that. Yeah. We next year we'll think about that.
The
parlay card. I like that.
We should do the parlay card because you could do, states. You could do the big bait guys. You could do the spinning rod. You could totally do a bunch of parlays.
Yeah, I like that. Folks, you have no idea how much work that I have put into this. Like I said, I probably spent close to 10 hours putting this stuff together. Hopefully I went through it as good as I could. And you will take it for what it's worth. That is how I see it. One thing that we've done in the past is once the event is over, we actually go back and we take a look at the odds. Surprisingly enough, I have been really, really on.
Yeah.
As far as the finishes,
you probably would have won money as a bookie.
Yeah.
But not a whole ton. So let's take another break and come back with the prop bets, or you want to just jump right in?
No, let's jump right in.
We're an hour and a half in.
Yeah.
I'm glad we didn't play the Lake Fork drinking game here every time you said Lake Fork over the
I know. Hey, real quick, Clay, on the comments on the YouTube, it's not because he's leading the points. It's the trend.
He's not. I mean, he's contended for the win every single place for the last...
It's a trend play. That's why he's hit 2-1, dude.
3-4 years ago, we were like, dude, if this guy could ever catch him down south, it would be game over. And then he just decided he could catch him down south.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been dominant. And the only thing he hasn't done is win, right? I mean, he's won the Angler of the Year championship up there at Mille Lacs and stuff, but like a full field Angler of the Year deal.
Yeah.
All right, are you ready to get into...
Prop bets. Here we go.
Now, some of these aren't... I mean, I don't really have any salacious ones. So here's our prop bets. If I say them wrong, you might have to word them correctly. Over under 60 pounds to win the event.
Are you keeping track of this between me and you?
Yeah, I've got them right here.
Okay. Over under.
Oh, between me and you?
Yeah, here, you need a piece of paper? Here, you got one. That's what we do every year.
Oh, okay.
You need it?
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Here we go.
Hold on.
I'm going to file these right down here in the file.
Okay. Over under 60 pounds to win.
I am going to take the over.
All right. I am going to take the under.
Okay. What are we doing? 10 of these?
No, there's like 35.
Holy crap. We're gonna
You told me to do prop bets.
Let's do 10. Pick 10.
Yeah, we can just run through them.
Okay.
Do you have anywhere to be?
No. Let's roll.
These are the prop. You said people like the prop bets.
They do
so
like
I
the
put
prop
like 3 hours into the prop bets.
Yeah.
Number of anglers that enter the arena on day one. What is there? 52, 53 guys in this thing?
53, I think.
That enter the arena in Fort Worth, Texas on day one to a country song.
What's the over under?
16 and a half.
I'll take the under.
I'm going over all day long on this. Over under biggest bass caught 8.5.
8.5. I'll take the under.
I will take the over.
We disagree on every one of them so far.
Number of anglers wearing a cowboy hat on stage on day 1. Over under 1.
Under.
I'm going over. I think that's a no-brainer.
Okay.
Can you? This is a yes or no question. You can do that, right?
I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a heads or tails, right?
Okay.
Chris Zaldain wears his sunglasses on stage at least one day of the weigh-in.
Now, when you say wear, if he has them on top of his hat.
No, like Jimmy Houston wears them at least.
What'd you say, one?
At least one day of the weigh-in.
No.
I say yes.
All right. We still haven't agreed on a single question.
Over the course of the entire tournament, the number of trucks and or boats that enter the arena the wrong way or hit the stage while dropping the angler off. Over under 1.
I'll take the under. I think Elo's going to have him dialed
We agree.
in.
I'll take the under on that.
Okay.
The number of times Dave Mercer says the phrase, everything's bigger in Texas on the final day of the weigh-in. The over-under is 3.
Okay, is that once the weigh-in starts or?
Once he's on stage, just on the final day.
How many? 3?
3. Over-under is 3.
Over.
Okay. I say it too. Okay, here's another interesting one. Number of anglers who get eliminated on day 2, which means they don't. The number of anglers who do not make the cut.
What is the cut?
Top 20, I believe. So you have 33 anglers.
Yeah.
Well, we're top 25, roughly 30 anglers who do not make the day 3 cut, who invite all the crowd to party with them at Billy Bob's. You know,
Only
where they
you
go,
would
hey,
come up with this one.
hey, I didn't make the cut, but it's great to be here. I just want everybody to come out to Billy Bob's tonight. We're going to two-step, have a great time, and I'll buy you a beer. We'll see you there. How many? I say I set the over-under at 3.
Under.
I'm going over.
Okay.
I think that's a no-brainer. I guess they all got a classic belt buckle. It says Bassmaster Classic on its big deal, big square thing because we are in Texas. There's a Texas theme to this.
All right.
Number of anglers who prominently have their belt buckle displayed, like jersey tucked in to where they're walking or on stage with their classic belt buckle showing. I have over under at 2.
Under.
Okay. I thought it'd be easy to take the over there, but a lot of it's going to be super hot out. So unless you got some dude with Wranglers in the back compartment and he switches, I'm taking the under there too. Is this boring? Should we keep going?
How many is that?
We're almost at 10.
All right, let's go.
Number of anglers who lose a lower unit during the tournament.
Now, how are we going to verify this?
Well, I mean, if you're watching live and it's like so-and-so's in the middle of the lake after he hit a stump, I mean, you'll have it. There's a lot of
You can go to the
coverage on
boat
that.
yard and get it verified.
It's some.
What's the number?
I've got 2.
I'll take the over.
I'll take the under. I think these guys have done their homework. Number of spectator boats following the leader on his first stop of the morning on the final day. Over under at 30.
Under.
I'll go over. Number of anglers in the top 10 who list a Carolina rig as one of their patterns. Just it's in
What's the number? Yeah.
I have it at 4.
Man. I'll take the under.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and the reason is because I don't think it's going to be the prominent deal, but I think, yes, they're going to use it.
All right, I got the under on that, too.
Yeah.
Number of previous Classic champions from the past 10 years that are at the Bassmaster Classic.
Oh, jeez. What's the number?
3.
I'm thinking. I'll take the under.
I'll take the over.
All right.
That's a deep question. I'll say here's the number of times Mercer says giant bass during the day one weigh-in.
What's the number?
I got 8.
Oh, I'm taking the under.
I'm taking the over.
All right.
We literally are opposite on everything.
Mm-hmm.
Here's an interesting one. Number of anglers, because they have the hot seat up there and when you're leading. So there's going to be a guy who's leading on the final day who's going to be in the hot seat, right?
Yeah.
So there's one. Number of anglers who occupy the hot seat on the final day of the weigh-in. Basically, you're saying how many lead changes on the final day.
Yeah.
We've seen...
What's the number?
We've seen guys start in 20 and have a big day from the bottom and stay up there. We've seen it be merry-go-round.
Yeah.
I got 5.
Wow.
I did good on these.
Yeah, that is a good one. I'll take the under.
With big fish, I'm going to take the over. I guess I should have thought of my answers border instead of just the questions. We're getting down there. There's like a bunch left.
Yeah, do 5 more.
5 more?
Yeah. And we're good.
Oh, this is a yes or no. Will the Classic be won primarily using a prototype bait?
No.
I say no as well. This one's from a listener that sent it in.
Mm-hmm.
Number of anglers finishing in the top 10 running an aluminum boat. Over under 1.
Wow. I'll take the under.
So you're saying that Bill Lowen or John Cox, is Keith Carson in aluminum?
I think he is.
None of those are going to have a top 10.
No.
Okay. I'll take the over. Now I have to... Oh, duration of the day one weigh-in. From the time the festivities start to the time the last guy crosses the stage.
4 hours?
I have 3 hours and 45 minutes.
Oh, jeez. I'm taking the over.
I'm taking the over all day.
Yeah.
I got 2 more.
Okay.
I got 3 more.
Okay.
Number of 5 bass limits weighed in on day 1. I have the over-under set at 35.
I'll take the over.
I'm going to take the over as well.
Mm-hmm.
Number of anglers wait late to the weigh-in because they're stuck in DFW traffic.
Well, that's a trick question because
Friday.
there is a NASCAR race taking place. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah. So I don't know what they're doing from a traffic perspective.
So
because they have to go right
it?
by the raceway.
All right. So I have the, should the over-under there be at 53? There's
sure
no way to verify that.
Elo is taking care of business.
We'll
Yeah,
drop
get
that
out
off.
of
Okay.
there. All right.
This is the last one.
All right.
Most number of sponsors that an angler over the course of the Classic, the most sponsor plugs in an interview after weighing in.
What's the number?
I ran the Bass Cat Burkers.
What's the number?
I got it at 9. And here's a caveat to it. They cannot read them off of their jersey. You have a lot of guys who haven't been in the Classic very much here, and that's a cheap way to get it. I'm talking about a guy who has this thing dialed in about running the Bass Cat Merc all up and down, putting his Denali rods used, flipping the BFE with the, the Sunlight shoe ref, C, blah, blah, blah.
9? I'm taking the under.
I'm going to go over all day.
10 companies they're going to...
Because it's easy. You get 20% of them knocked out with the Bass Cat Merc. Now you're down to 8 already.
No, I'm taking the under.
Then you're going to talk about what kind of bait, right?
Yeah.
And what kind of rod you're flipping.
All right, here
it on.
I've got. Was that that was the last
now
one?
You're half down. Then you're going to thank your non-endemic that helped you get there, and you're going to tell them to go stop by the booth to pick up the new Signature Series bait that's only available in that color. Now there's freaking 8 right there, and you still haven't even sounded like you're selling out.
I'm taking the under. All right, taking the under on that one. Now I have a yes or no.
Okay.
Does Dave Mercer wear a cowboy hat any of the 3 days on stage?
Mercer? Yes. Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes, I think he does.
I do too. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize the All-Star race at Texas Motor Speedway is going on at the same time as the Bassmaster Classic. So what is that? I-35 West is going to be jam-packed. So if you're going to watch the Classic,
is it on
you're
Saturday
going to the
or
show,
Sunday?
I think it's on Sunday.
Okay.
But I think I don't know if they have a race on Saturday or not. I don't know. I don't follow the schedule. I just know there's a race this weekend. Yeah.
You did a good job. I do like it. I mean, it's my job. I mean, what's the fun if you just sit here and go,
No,
oh, yeah,
you're right, man.
Oh, yeah, you nailed the odds, Mark.
No,
Great
that's
job.
part of it. That's part of it. The whole Clark Wendlandt thing is going to be interesting. And I think people need to understand, I have nothing against him. I hope he freaking wins the thing.
You have to look at these people with sparkling individuality, personalities, families, lives, and careers as inanimate objects while you're doing this. Is that not a fair assessment?
Yeah. It's
impossible to take it.
I spent an enormous amount of time looking at this statistical data, trying to figure it out. Probably the most time that I've spent on the odds that any year I've ever done it. So it was hard. You didn't have the historical data from a Lake Ray Roberts standpoint. You had a little bit, but not really, and you had to do comparisons. And hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Maybe there's a little side action going on there between fans.
Now, here's one that I would really like to have that you can't get. You could get it.
What's that?
I want to put a recorder. There's 2 guys. I see Scott Martin, Jason Christie. And I want to put a recorder in their pocket when they're at the booths, turn it on, and count how many times people ask them, why are you out there fishing? Dude, over 3 days in Texas on that, that would be some completely meaningless and pointless data.
Yeah.
But maybe you might understand why on Sunday at 3, those guys are ready to get the hell out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. All right. So we are actually going to be there. You got the times?
Yes, I do. I have some information. So
All
we
right.
will be at the AFCO booth on Saturday.
We're not broadcasting.
No.
We're just going
to hang out for a while. We'll just stop by the AFCO booth at noon on Saturday. And then we will go over to the Bass Tank booth 2243. I think it's kind of over by where the Skeeter Boats deal is. They typically have those big giant round things up there, so you can kind of, I think so.
Yeah.
So 2243, the Bass Tank booth, 1 o'clock Saturday. We'll be there for about 45 minutes with the 100 BTL hats. I don't know what color she's bringing. I don't think it's the same color that the normal BTL hats are. There are Richardson 112 with a patch hat. There's only 100 of them. I can't hold them. I can't limit people. So, I mean, if you want to come for a thing and buy all 100, by all means. You'll be swimming in BTL. There'll also be BTL buffs. I think those are being $8.95. BTL stickers for $6.95. And then just 100 hats. So when they're gone, they're gone. You can't order them. And then we'll open the store up the week following the Classic.
Next week?
Yeah.
Or the week after?
It might be. It just depends because the people who do it are at the Classic also doing everything. So it just depends on where
probably
they
not
are.
next week, but
within
the next 2 weeks.
Right after the Classic, it'll be open. So you'll get a chance to get that. And then we will also be, again, if you're going on Sunday for the final day weigh-in at noon, we will be in the Bass Tank booth 2243. You'd probably be able to meet John. I don't know. John might be at the, I think there's an event at Eufaula going on too, the ABA or something that he might have to fish. I don't know.
He's going to be on the show Tuesday in studio.
So 12 o'clock Sunday, 1 o'clock Saturday at the Bassmaster Classic Expo, booth 2243, the Bass Tank, also hanging out at AFCO. And then I will also be moseying about the Denali booth, the Big Bite booth, Sunline, Spro, Gamakatsu, and the snack stand, because I love a good a good snack. So
yeah, I myself will just be walking around looking.
Will you be doing a lot of that?
I'll spend a lot of time in the media room talking, catching up,
because I literally lived in the media room for 11, 12 years.
Yeah,
I'm over the media room. I'll go down there to get the nuts and bolts for BTL.
Yeah.
So we know what's going on and talk and get the behind the scenes stuff. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Get a vibe for it. But primarily, I want to go experience the Classic.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good thing. Good thing to do. I did that last year. It was cool. So we will have a show on Monday. All right, we'll kind of talk about the experience, the likelihood that we get the winner on. Just depends on their schedule. Typically, they're booked the entire week. We will probably have the Classic winner on the following week.
Does FS1 have a, what did you call it after they won the Classic? The ringer? What did they put them through? The wash?
The car wash.
The car wash. Do you think that FS1 has that? Do you think that the Classic winner gets on
I don't know.
the FS1 morning shows and that it makes the highlight shows and is talked about
That's a good question.
Like it was when ESPN covered it?
Don't know.
Does it make their main page of their website? And
all questions that remain to be answered.
Valid questions.
Valid questions.
Good job, Mark. You did a lot of time, and it
Yeah.
was a 2-hour show. I mean, you went through 53. You had to look up every single one of these guys since we do not have an intern.
Yeah. Yeah. It was fun. Hopefully everybody
You think you can get an
enjoyed
intern
that.
this next semester?
Maybe. Heck, I'm still trying to find somebody to run the video board at school. You want to do that? The pay is great. I think it's like $20 a game.
What kind of games?
Football games, man.
I'll pass.
It's good money. $20 a game to sit there and press a button, play, stop, pause.
Did I have too many prop bets?
Rather
have too many than not enough.
Yeah, there was quite a few. Anyway, folks, if you see us, if you're going, say hi to us. Can't wait to see some of the fans, talk to you. That's part of the reason why I'm going down there is just to hang out.
We'll probably see hopefully see a bunch of BTL gear.
Yeah, that would be cool.
If you're
Make sure you wear.
If you're wearing BTL gear, I'm coming up to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
They'll probably be like, who are you?
Don't be stalking them, Matt. Don't be a stalker, okay?
I see a BTL hat over there.
All right, and then for our Oklahoma fans, remember, next Wednesday, we are going to be live with James Watson at the newest Black Rifle Coffee retail outlet here in Moore, Oklahoma. Come by, say hi to us. Hopefully we'll have some kind of special, I don't know, free coffee or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll figure something out. But come join the live show with James Watson on Wednesday. And then Tuesday, John Sukup's going to be in studio live. And then Monday, Matt and I will review the happenings in Fort Worth and Lake Ray Roberts. And we might have a guest, we might not. We'll just
we could surely
see
find
how
someone
it goes.
to be on.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
All right, enjoy the Classic, folks. One more day this week, day 4 with Frank. Tomorrow, classic stories from the man in Cleveland, Uncle Frank. All right, everybody be safe. Back tomorrow. That's it. We're out of here.